We are going to be looking at Matthew chapter 22, verses 15 through 22, the rendering unto Caesar. On Tuesday of Holy Week, Jesus enters the temple for the third day in a row. On Sunday, he made a dramatic and prophetic entrance in Jerusalem and into the temple on the day that we know as Palm Sunday. In doing this, he fulfills no less than 3 biblical prophecies that were connected to the coming of the Messiah and the fulfillment of God's promises. Jesus came down the Mount of Olives, which fulfilled a prophecy in Zechariah. He is mounted on a donkey, which King Solomon had done when he came into Jerusalem and was anointed king or Messiah. And the prophet Zechariah again proclaimed that when the Messiah came, the Messiah would also do this. Jesus also then enters by the east gate, fulfilling a prophecy of Ezekiel that the Messiah would do this. So Jesus clearly sends a message that he is the Messiah. He goes back to Bethany, spends the night, and then on Monday morning, he comes back to Jerusalem. He re-enters the Jerusalem, and he comes into the temple for a second day in a row. He performs there a dramatic prophetic action that we refer to as the cleansing of the temple. The Gospels say that Jesus apparently shut down the temple for a brief period of time, protesting the way it was being run, protesting in particular the leaders of the temple he calls a den of thieves. Goes back to Bethany to spend the night. On Tuesday of Holy Week, Jesus returns to Jerusalem for the third day in a row, and once more he enters into the temple. And for the third day in a row, the focus of Jesus' attention and his ministry will be on the temple. This time, though, on Tuesday, Jesus' enemies are ready for him. They've seen what he did on Sunday. They saw what he did on Monday. They're ready. And so Jesus will face an orchestrated campaign of attacks. The first attack will come from the temple leadership, the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. This is the group that Jesus attacked the day before, calling them robbers and thieves. They immediately challenge Jesus, asking him by what authority he has done what he did on Sunday and Monday. Of course, they are the authorities, the temple authorities. They've been given that authority by the Roman Empire, having been appointed by Rome. The temple authorities are the ones who collaborate with Rome in running the temple and running Jerusalem and making sure that things go smoothly for Rome and the empire. They are also the ones who benefit from Rome's exploitation. They benefit immensely from this. The things that they refer to, those things, probably referring to all of the events leading up to Tuesday. So it would include Monday, the shutting down of the temple and him calling them names, but it would also include Palm Sunday and the dramatic entrance into Jerusalem. Jesus deflects this first attack by giving them an impossible question to answer, just as they had given him one. Jesus then strikes back by telling 2 parables, the parables of the 2 sons and the parables of the vineyard workers, which you have read. Jesus uses the vineyard as a metaphor for the temple, and the wicked tenants, of course, are the temple leaders. The temple authorities clearly understood that they were indeed the target of the parable and the target of Jesus' attacks. It's at this point that we come to the passage we're going to be looking at. A second group now steps forward. The Gospels tell us that the first group sent the second group, so this is a coordinated attack. This time the attack comes from a very unlikely group, Pharisees and Herodians, who basically agree on nothing, except apparently that they both want to attack Jesus. They are sent by the priests who just left, again, implying it's a coordinated attack. By the way, there will be 5 of these attacks on Tuesday, one after the other. So we begin with verse 15. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him and said to him. So they sent their disciples along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth and show deference to no one, and you regard no people with partiality, just laying it on thick, obviously insincere. Tell us then, and here comes the trick question, is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not? Once again, as the Gospels say, this is a trick question. It's an impossible question to answer if you want to live. Matthew and Mark both tell us this is a trap, just as the first question had been. Either way you answer this question, you are dead. If you say no, it's not lawful to pay taxes to Caesar, well, it's likely that the Romans would see you as an insurrectionist and you would be crucified. Refusal to pay taxes was an act of rebellion against Rome. There are recent memories at this time of a tax revolt led by Judas the Galilean in 6 AD. These memories were still fresh. This was only a generation before the time of Jesus, so it would be on everybody's mind. On the other hand, if you say yes, it is lawful to pay taxes to Caesar, pleasing the Romans, it is likely the crowd would tear you apart. Either way, you were doomed. Being torn apart by the crowd was a very real possibility in the first century. Riots and revolts against Rome were common. The Jewish writer Josephus gives us numerous examples. And by the way, most of these occurred at Passover, which is exactly when this event is taking place. We're in we're in Jerusalem, we're at the temple, and it's the Passover season. It does not get more volatile than this. Jesus' enemies are trying to get him to say something against Rome so that Rome could eliminate him for them. Failing that, they could at least separate from Jesus from the crowds so they could kill him. We're told repeatedly that what keeps Jesus safe is that the crowds love him and they're around him, and you can't get at him without creating a major incident and the crowds tearing you apart. So the goal is to separate Jesus from the crowds. Well, if he said it was lawful to pay taxes to Caesar, the crowds would likely have walked away. Mark and Matthew repeatedly tell us that only the crowd keeps Jesus safe. In other words, the question, is it lawful to render unto Caesar, is a perfectly laid trap. But once again, as is so often true, it is a trap that Jesus will have the ability to sidestep. This time, he lays a trap for them. Picking up at verse 18. But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin that's used for the tax. And they brought him a Roman denarius. Then he said to them, Whose head is on this coin, and whose title is on that coin? They answered, Caesar's, the emperor's. Then he said to them, Well, give therefore to the emperor, to Caesar, the things which are Caesar's or the emperor's, and give to God the things that are God's. Now, the question whose image enables Jesus to spring a trap on his enemies. They are inside the temple area, and Jesus asked them to show him a Roman coin. You can see one here. The coin would have had an idolatrous image and a blasphemous message that Caesar is God. Unbelievably, they produce it. Jesus' opponents are carrying the Roman denarius inside the temple, not the Tyrian drachma here at the bottom used in the temple. It was illegal by Jewish law to have a Roman denarius inside the temple because, one, it contained an image, idolatry, and second, it said that Caesar was God, blasphemy. By asking for the coin and by asking whose image, Jesus has brought this now out into the open. Jesus also asks, interestingly, whose title, because again, the coin not only contains the image of Caesar, an idol, an idolatrous image, but also the title. This was on all Roman coins at the time. The coin proclaims Caesar as DV, God, Caesar DV, or the alternate version is Caesar DV Filii, or Filius, that he is the Son of God. In other words, the coin that Jesus asked for and that they presented shows them to be Roman collaborators and idolaters. They are literally, quite literally, in Rome's payroll. Jesus turns the tables and tricks them into admitting who they really are. This is truly brilliant. And with this, Jesus turns back the second attack. But his enemies are not done. There will be 3 more attacks before the day is over. You will be reading these as you go through the book of Matthew.